Hello everyone. Today you will learn interesting facts about how early Muslims told time without clocks.
A long time ago, there were no smartwatches or phones to tell the time, so people had to get creative to keep track of those fleeting minutes. They might have looked up at the sun or maybe checked their shadows. Yep, you heard that right. You pleased to tell time by watching shadows. It's kind of crazy, but it makes sense if you think about it. The sun moves across the sky every day, and it's pretty consistent. So by measuring how long a shadow is, you can figure out what time it is. It's a cool way of telling time is still around today. In fact, you might have done it yourself before without even knowing it. That's because shadow timekeeping is still used in lots of places around the world, especially in places where there's lots of sunshine and not many clocks. But shadow timekeeping isn't just about practicality. It's also an ancient art form that helps us understand the world around us and our place in it. Shadow reckoning has been practiced for thousands of years by many different cultures, but today we're going to focus on its role in Islam. So let us dive in and see how Muslim scholars use shadow reckoning to understand the world around them. So what exactly is shadow reckoning? Well, it's pretty simple, really. You just measure the angle of a shadow cast by an upright object like a stick or a building at a particular time of day. By knowing the angle of the sun at noon, when it's highest in the sky, you can estimate the angle of the sun at any other time of day. From there, you can calculate the approximate time. For example, if the shadow of a vertical stick is shorter at 1 o'clock than it is at 2 o'clock, then you know that the sun is higher in the sky and you can guess that it's closer to noon. If the shadow is longer at 3 o'clock than it is at 4 o'clock, then you know that the sun is lower in the sky and you can guess that it's closer to sunset. This may sound like a complicated science, but for centuries, Muslim scholars did all these calculations in their heads, quickly and accurately, without any tools except their eyes and their minds. They developed mental techniques and tricks to help them remember the angles and proportions of shadows at different times of day. They also created geometric tools and diagrams to help them visualize the relationships between shadows and the sun. And they wrote down their findings in books and treatises that were used by generations of Muslims around the world. The practice of shadow reckoning was widespread in Islamic civilization. It wasn't just scholars who kept track of time this way. Shepherds, farmers, travelers, and merchants all learned how to read the shadows and use them to plan their days. In fact, shadow reckoning was so important that it was even taught in schools and universities. Some of the most famous Muslim astronomers, mathematicians, and philosophers, such as Al-Khwarizmi and Ibn al-Hidam, studied and wrote about shadow reckoning and its applications. Of course, shadow reckoning wasn't perfect. It relied on clear skies and unhindered views of the sun, which wasn't always possible. It also required careful observation and estimation, which wasn't always easy. But it was still an invaluable skill, especially in a world without clocks or watches. And it wasn't just useful for telling time. It also helped people understand the geometry of light and shadows, the mechanics of the solar system, and the nature of time itself. One of the most famous examples of shadow reckoning in Islamic civilization is the story of Harun al-Rashid, the Caliph of Baghdad in the 8th century. One day Harun was walking through the marketplace, and he noticed a crowd of people gathered around a strange contraption. He went over to see what was going on, and he saw a man named Yaqut al-Kindi, who was a mathematician and astronomer. Yaqub had made a device that could tell the time, the month, and the direction of Mecca simply by casting a shadow from a vertical line. Harun was amazed by this invention, and he invited Yaqub to show it to him again in his palace. Yaqub accepted the invitation, and he set up his device in the courtyard of the palace. When the sun came up, Yaqub pointed to the shadow cast by the device, and he told Harun that it was time for the morning prayer. Then he pointed to another shadow and said it was time for the midday prayer. And then he pointed to a third shadow and said it was time for the afternoon prayer. Harun was impressed by this invention, and he asked Yaqub how he had done it. Yaqub explained that he had used simple geometry and trigonometry to calculate the angles of shadows at different times of day. It also used a little trickery to make the device look mysterious and impressive. He had actually calibrated it to face Mecca, so that the direction of the shadow would coincide with the direction of the city. Harun was impressed by Yaqub's wit and wisdom, and he rewarded him with a handsome gift. He also commissioned him to make more devices for himself and his court. And that's just one story about the amazing things that people did with shadow reckoning. There are many others. But why is this important? Well, it's important because it shows that shadow reckoning wasn't just a practical tool. It was also a source of wonder and amazement. It helped people appreciate the beauty and complexity of the natural world. It also inspired people to explore new ideas and make new discoveries. Without shadow reckoning, we might not have had some of the greatest scientific and technological advances of all time. Shadow reckoning is an ancient art that has been practiced by many different cultures throughout history. But it is especially important in Islam, where it played a vital role in understanding the world around us. By measuring the angle of shadows cast by objects, Muslims were able to tell the time, navigate the world, and perform religious duties. Shadow reckoning was not only a practical skill, but also an intellectual pursuit that helped scholars and scientists advance our understanding of mathematics, astronomy, and physics. If you want to learn more about shadow reckoning, here are some suggestions for further reading. First, check out a book called A History of Timekeeping by David McCone. This book covers the entire history of timekeeping from ancient times to the present day and gives a lot of detail on shadow reckoning and its importance in different cultures. Another good option is a book called Time and Again by Alan Cooper. This book is a fun and easy read that explores the many ways we have kept time throughout history, and also discusses shadow reckoning and other traditional methods of timekeeping. Finally, if you want to learn more about Islamic science and culture, I recommend a book called A History of Science and Technology in Islam by Sabone. This book is a comprehensive overview of the scientific and technological achievements of the Islamic world, and gives a lot of detail on the contributions of Muslim scholars to mathematics, astronomy, and other fields. So next time you look at a shadow, remember that it is more than just a simple dark shape. It is a connection to the past, a reminder of the ingenuity of our ancestors, and a testament to the power of human curiosity. Shadow reckoning is an ancient art that has been practiced by many different cultures throughout history, but it is especially important in Islam, where it played a vital role in understanding the world around us. By measuring the angle of shadows cast by objects, Muslims were able to tell the time, navigate the world, and perform religious duties. Shadow reckoning was not only a practical skill, but also an intellectual pursuit that helped scholars and scientists advance our understanding of mathematics. The Preckoning. Hepakul. Horfer. Rewarned. I don't run out. Without. Ephebund. Parat. Printer. If you want to learn more about shadow reckoning, here are some suggestions for further reading. First, check out a book called A History of Timekeeping by David McCone. This book covers the entire history of timekeeping from ancient times to the present day, and gives a lot of detail on shadow reckoning and its importance in different cultures. Another good option is a book called Time and Again by Alan Cooper. This book is a fun and easy read that explores the many ways we have kept time throughout history, and also discusses shadow reckoning and other traditional methods of timekeeping. Finally, if you want to learn more about Islamic science and culture, I recommend a book called A History of Science and Technology in Islam by Sabone. This book is a comprehensive overview of the scientific and technological achievements of the Islamic world, and gives a lot of detail on the contributions of Muslim scholars to mathematics, astronomy, and other fields. So next time you look at a shadow, remember that it is more than just a simple dark shape. It is a connection to the past, a reminder of the ingenuity of our ancestors, and a testament to the power of human curiosity. We hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. And if you have any comments or suggestions,
in the sprawling cities of the early Islamic world, where knowledge flowed like water from a fountain and trade routes hummed with activity, lived a man named Musa. Musa was a weaver, his days filled with the rhythmic clack of his loom and the soft murmur of prayers echoing from nearby mosques. While the call to prayer 5 times a day was the heartbeat of his faith, it was also a reminder of the relentless march of time. But Musa's world was one where clocks and watches were unknown. Time for him and many others was not just measured, it was experienced. It was whispered by the wind, shown by the sun, and traced in the patterns of shadows. One afternoon, as Musa sat weaving, he heard the familiar call to prayer. He paused, listening to Imam Hassan's melodious voice reciting the call to the evening prayer. The faithful had about 15 minutes to prepare, but did they know how accurate that estimate was? How could they tell when exactly the time for prayer was up without a clock or a watch? This was no small matter. For early Muslims, being punctual for their 5 daily prayers was more than a religious duty. It was a commitment to living in harmony with nature's rhythms. Each prayer was meant to be performed at precise moments, aligned with the sun's position in the sky. To ensure they never missed a prayer or performed them too early or late, early Muslims developed ingenious methods to track time. Their tools were simple, yet remarkably accurate for their time. They observed the sky, studied the angles of shadows, and even used water and geometry to calculate time. One of their most common and accessible tools was the shadow, which told them the time. This wasn't just any ordinary shadow, though. This was a special kind of shadow, one that changed length throughout the day, like an ever-moving clock hand. It was a method called shadow reckoning. Shadow reckoning was deeply ingrained in the lives of early Muslims, from scholars in great cities like Cordoba to merchants on dusty roads, even shepherds watching over their flocks. It was a skill so vital that it was often taught alongside the Quran itself. Imagine, if you will, a young Muslim boy sitting under the shade of a date palm, listening intently as an elder explains how to read the sky and the shadows around them. The boy's mind is sharp, soaking in every detail, and his eyes are keen, constantly observing the world around him. This is Omar, and for him, learning the ways of shadow reckoning is more than just a task. It's a journey into understanding the very fabric of time itself. Guided by the elder's wisdom, Omar learns to use the sun and its ever-shifting shadows to tell the time. He sees how the length of a shadow can indicate the hour of the day, allowing him to keep track of time even without a clock or a watch. With each lesson, Omar becomes more attuned to the natural world around him, realizing that nature itself is a teacher. And as the years pass, Omar becomes a master of this ancient practice, passing on the knowledge to the next generation just as he was taught. Back in the bustling city of Cordoba, Musa finished his weaving for the day. As the sun began its slow descent, casting long shadows across the workshop, he knew it was time to wash himself and prepare for the evening prayer. As he stepped outside, he noticed a group of children playing near an old mosque, their laughter echoing through the narrow streets. Among them was a young boy named Omar, who was known for his sharp mind and curious spirit. Musa watched as Omar, with the innocence of youth, used a stick to measure the length of his shadow. A smile touched Musa's lips. It was a simple game for the boy, but in it, Musa saw a reflection of a deeper tradition, a tradition that had been passed down through generations, a tradition of reading the signs of time hidden in plain sight. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the clouds in hues of gold and crimson, Musa felt the pull of the evening prayer. It was a sound that signaled not just a religious obligation, but a connection to something much larger, a community bound by faith and time. Turning to go home, Musa couldn't help but steal another glance at the children. In their play, he saw the future, a future where the wisdom of the past was carried forward by the laughter and curiosity of the young. The idea of shadow reckoning goes back thousands of years. Even ancient civilizations like the Egyptians and Babylonians used simple methods to tell the time by measuring shadows. But for early Muslims, it wasn't just about measuring time, it was about understanding and respecting the natural order set by God. They didn't see time as a mere tick-tock on a clock, but as a divine rhythm, a constant reminder of their place in the universe. And so they turned to the sky, the sun, the stars, and the shadows to learn to read the language of time. In the heart of Baghdad, a renowned scholar named al-Khwarizmi adjusted his glasses and consulted a device that looked like a cross between a compass and a protractor. It was a fascinating invention called an armillary sphere, used to measure the position of celestial bodies like the sun and stars. Al-Khwarizmi was one of many Muslim scholars who built upon the knowledge of earlier civilizations, refining tools and techniques to make them even more accurate. His work wasn't confined to the walls of his study, though. He and other Muslim scholars traveled far and wide, sharing their knowledge and collaborating with scientists from different cultures. In fact, during the Islamic Golden Age, Muslim scholars were instrumental in preserving and advancing Greek scientific texts. They translated these works, ensuring that the knowledge of ancient civilizations didn't get lost. They also made original contributions to mathematics, astronomy, and other sciences, pushing the boundaries of what was known and possible. Al-Khwarizmi, whose name actually translates to the one who is near the horizon, was particularly interested in the horizon. He knew that by observing the horizon and how it intersected with celestial bodies, you could determine the exact time. This led him to develop a groundbreaking device, a quadrant that allowed for incredibly precise timekeeping. But what exactly is a quadrant, and why was it such a revolutionary invention? A quadrant is essentially an instrument used to measure angles, particularly those related to the position of the sun. In the case of al-Khwarizmi's quadrant, it was designed to measure the angle between the sun and the horizon. By measuring this angle, you could accurately tell the time. What made al-Khwarizmi's quadrant so revolutionary was its precision. It allowed for incredibly accurate readings, making it an invaluable tool for astronomers, navigators, and anyone else who needed to keep track of time. This innovation, along with other contributions of Muslim scholars, helped shape the course of scientific history. Back in Musa's neighborhood, a street vendor was setting up shop for the evening. His wares included fresh fruits, spices, and a peculiar device that caught Omar's eye. It was a sundial, a simple yet ingenious device that used the position of the sun to tell the time. The vendor, noticing the boy's interest, picked up the sundial and showed Omar how it worked. As the sun moved across the sky, its shadow indicated the time on the dial. It was like a giant clock face, but instead of numbers, it had letters that corresponded to the hours. The simplicity of the device amazed Omar, and the vendor, seeing the spark of curiosity in the boy's eyes, explained the basic principles behind it. In essence, the sundial harnessed the power of shadow reckoning on a more permanent scale. It took the natural phenomenon of changing shadows and turned it into a readable format, allowing people to tell the time at a glance. But there was more to the sundial than met the eye. It was a symbol of a rich scientific heritage, a heritage that had flourished in Muslim communities. The vendor, sensing the questions in Omar's eyes, continued, explaining that devices like these had been used for centuries by Muslim scholars and travelers to navigate across vast distances. They also played a role in agriculture, helping farmers plan their planting and harvesting based on the rhythms of the sun. The beauty of the sundial lay not just in its practicality, but also in its elegance, a testament to the ingenuity of human observation and understanding of the natural world. The vendor then handed the sundial to Omar, letting the boy feel its weight and coolness in his hands. At that moment, Omar knew he wanted to understand more, to know how these devices were made and how the science behind them worked. He thanked the vendor and ran home, eager to pore over his books and learn all he could about the sundial and the wider world of Islamic science. That night, as Omar lay in bed, he looked up at the star-filled sky. He thought about the sundials, quadrants, and armillary spheres he'd seen that day, and he wondered about the endless mysteries of the universe. With newfound determination, he vowed to study hard, to one day become a scholar, and perhaps invent his own devices to help understand the world. Around him, little did Omar know that his journey that day at the market was just the beginning of a lifelong adventure in the world of science. And so, armed with curiosity and a thirst for knowledge, Omar began his journey, stepping into the footsteps of great Muslim scholars who had gazed at the same stars and asked the same questions. His story was a testament to the enduring legacy of discovery and the power of one boy's fascination with the world around him.